Hey love, welcome back. Take a breath, settle in, and let's step into today's story together. Please join my Patreon. Now, let's start. The breaking point. I don't think there's a single moment that ruins your confidence. It's more like a slow erosion. But for me, the breaking point happened in a glass-walled office under fluorescent lights that showed every flaw I'd spent years trying to hide. I was sitting across from a hiring manager, talking about a job I knew I was qualified for, when I caught her eyes drifting down from my resume to my skin. It wasn't subtle. It never was. Her smile stayed polite, but I saw the flicker, the quick, uncomfortable glance at my acne. The way she blinked like she didn't know where to look. I felt myself shrinking in the chair. 25 years old, and still flinching like a teenager. By the time I walked out of that building, the July heat hit my face and made every spot sting. I sat in my car, AC blasting, watching my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked tired, blotchy, embarrassed. I don't know why that day felt different, but it did. Something inside me quietly whispered, "You can't keep living like this." Dr. Rowan Sky. That evening, I typed best dermatologist near me with a kind of desperation I didn't want to admit. One name kept coming up, Dr. Rowan Sky. A dermatologist people described as eccentric but brilliant, unconventionally artistic, life-changing. Her clinic reviews were filled with words like transformation and rebirth. Honestly, that should have been a warning. But instead, I scrolled deeper, looking at before and after pictures of people whose skin looked like porcelain afterward, glassy, perfect, like the faces you see in luxury magazines. I remember whispering, "I just want to feel normal," as I booked the earliest appointment available. The moment the confirmation email hit, a wave of panic washed through me. Not excitement, not relief, but a strange sense that I'd just stepped onto a path I didn't understand. Back then, I thought all I wanted was clear skin. I had no idea how much more I was about to lose, or how much of myself I was about to discover. The clinic. Walking into Dr. Rowan's clinic felt less like a medical appointment and more like stepping into some kind of high-end art gallery. Everything was white, glassy, quiet. Even the air smelled expensive, like jasmine and disinfectant mixed together. I checked in, sat down, and tried not to stare at the walls filled with huge portraits of flawless, almost ethereal faces. Some looked male, some female, some somewhere in between. All of them had that same impossible glow. I remember thinking, is this even real skin? When the nurse finally called my name, my palms were already slick. Dr. Rowan was nothing like I expected. She wasn't warm. Not exactly. More focused. Sharp eyes, sleek black hair tied back, wearing a lab coat that looked tailored. She didn't shake my hand. She just studied me in a silence that felt way too long. She murmured, stepping closer, tilting my chin up with a gloved finger. Beautiful bone structure. Very rare symmetry. I laughed nervously. "I'm here for the acne. Trust me, there's nothing beautiful about." She cut me off without even looking offended. "I'm not talking about your skin. I'm talking about your potential." Something in the pit of my stomach tightened. The consultation. She moved around me like an artist circling a sculpture. Every so often she'd make a soft sound, approval or excitement. I couldn't tell. No dermatologist had ever looked at me with anything close to fascination. Finally, she said, "Your acne is easy. I can fix that. What interests me is what lies underneath." I swallowed. "I just want clear skin." "Yes," she said with a small, unreadable smile. "And I want to reveal something worth showing." I should have asked what she meant by that. But I was tired, insecure, and desperate for help. Her confidence felt like safety, even though something in her tone didn't sit right. She prescribed a treatment plan, speaking quickly, her voice smooth and certain. I didn't understand half the medical terms, but the results she promised sounded like a miracle. Near the end, she added, "I'll need you back here weekly. Your skin is unique. I want to be hands-on." Hands-on. The phrase lingered longer than it should have. When I left the clinic, the sun hit my face, and I felt hopeful. Nervous. seen in a way I couldn't explain. Only later would I understand the truth. She wasn't treating me. She was preparing me. The first changes. The results didn't come slowly, like I expected. They hit me in waves, fast, dramatic, almost unreal. By the end of the first week, the angry red bumps on my cheeks were fading. By week 2, the deep cystic knots under my skin were practically gone. I remember leaning toward the bathroom mirror one night and whispering, "No way. This can't be me." My face looked smooth in a way it never had in my entire life. Not perfect, but close enough that I felt something loosen in my chest, like hope. The kind that hurts a little because you're scared to trust it. But then the other changes started. It was subtle at first. My stubble didn't grow back as fast. I thought maybe I just shaved closer than usual. No big deal. Then a few days later, nothing. No roughness, no shadow. Just soft, bare skin. I ran my fingers over my jaw, confused. Facial hair had always been the one thing I could rely on. Even with acne, even on bad days, it made me feel, solid, masculine. But now it was disappearing like it had never been there at all. My eyebrows came next, cleaner, sharper, almost shaped. I hadn't touched them. Yet every morning they looked a little more refined, a little more delicate. And under certain bathroom lighting, my jawline even looked narrower, less blocky. I blamed weight loss at first, even though nothing else on my body had changed. I told myself it was still worth it. Clear skin was worth anything. But deep down, a tiny panic flickered. The question. At my next appointment, I tried to bring it up casually. "Hey, is it normal for my facial hair to, stop growing?" Dr. Rowan didn't even look up from her tablet. "It's a side effect. Some patients get it. You're adapting beautifully." Beautifully. The word hit harder than it should have. When I left the clinic that day, I caught my reflection in one of the glass walls. For a split second, I didn't recognize myself. Not because I looked bad, but because I looked soft. Almost gentle. Almost like the people in the clinic photos. A strange, uneasy feeling crawled up my spine. This wasn't the version of myself I thought I was signing up for. And yet, part of me couldn't stop staring. The mirror. The morning everything shifted, nothing special was happening. No dramatic music, no big moment. Just me, half awake, brushing my teeth. I lifted my head to spit and froze. The mirror caught me at an angle I wasn't used to, soft morning light coming through the blinds, brushing over my skin. For a second, I genuinely thought someone else was standing behind me. My face looked delicate. There's no other word for it. The acne scars I'd lived with for years had nearly vanished. My jaw looked slimmer. My eyebrows looked naturally shaped. And the smoothness of my skin gave me this almost airbrushed glow. I leaned closer, squinting, as if the details would snap back into something familiar. But nothing did. I whispered, "What the hell?" My voice sounded too loud in the quiet bathroom. The worst part wasn't that I looked different. It was that I looked beautiful in a way that didn't feel anything like me. I tried shaving my body later that day, thinking maybe smoothing out everything else would make my face feel less exposed. But that only made the rest of me match the softness I was trying so hard to ignore. My chest, my arms, my legs, clean, bare, unfamiliar. I looked almost like one of those K-pop models I used to see online, pretty in a way that unsettled me. I kept catching my reflection everywhere. Windows, phone screens, chrome faucets. Each time it startled me, like a stranger lived just beneath the surface. The call. That afternoon, I called the clinic. "Hi, I think something's wrong with the treatment," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "My face looks different." The receptionist replied cheerfully, "Different is normal. Dr. Rowan says transformation happens faster with certain clients." Clients. Transformation. Words that sounded harmless before now felt like warning signs. When I hung up, I stood in front of the mirror again, staring at the softer version of myself who stared right back. I lifted my hair. Even that looked finer, smoother, almost glossy. A wave of panic tightened my chest. But beneath it, something quieter stirred. Curiosity. The softest hum. The kind you try to shut down because you don't trust where it leads. I told myself it was just the lighting, just the treatment, just my imagination. But that night, lying in bed, the truth pressed into my thoughts like a whisper. If this isn't who I am, then why does a part of me keep looking? Confrontation. By the time I walked back into Dr. Rowan's clinic, I wasn't calm anymore. I wasn't confused. I was scared. My reflection had stopped feeling like a fluke. Every day, the softness grew. My eyelashes looked longer. My lips looked fuller. Even my cheekbones seemed higher, like my whole face was being carved into something new. I didn't wait for the nurse to call my name. I went straight to the desk. I need to talk to Dr. Rowan. Now. They must have seen the panic in my face, because 2 minutes later I was standing in her office. She didn't look surprised to see me. If anything, she looked expectant. "What seems to be the problem?" she asked, folding her hands. I sat down hard. My face is changing way more than I agreed to. I look, I don't know, pretty. Too pretty. I don't look like myself. She raised one eyebrow, almost amused. And the issue is? The issue is I didn't sign up for this. My voice cracked. I just wanted clear skin. The contract. She reached for a folder on her desk, slid out a set of papers, and placed them in front of me with surgical precision. You did sign up for this. You simply didn't read closely. My stomach dropped. The paperwork looked familiar, my signature at the bottom, the clinic's letterhead. But she tapped a paragraph halfway down the page. Participation in promotional modeling for the Glass Skin campaign is required in exchange for full coverage treatment. My throat tightened. I thought that meant before and after photos. Like testimonials. No, she said simply. You agreed to be the face of the campaign. A new aesthetic. A new standard of beauty. And I have been sculpting that vision. Sculpting. Not treating. Not healing. Look, I'm not a model, I said. And I'm definitely not whatever you're trying to turn me into. She leaned forward, eyes sharp and calm at the same time. You asked me for perfect skin. I gave you perfection. And now you'll let me show the world what your transformation can do. I don't want this, I whispered. You don't have a choice, she replied softly. The treatment was free. The contract is binding. And frankly, you're turning out even better than I hoped. I felt the blood drain from my face. She stood, signaling the conversation was over. Your first styling appointment is this Friday. Don't be late. We have much to reveal. As I walked out of the office, my legs felt numb, my chest tight. A trap I didn't see coming had already closed around me. And the terrifying part wasn't just being forced into it. It was realizing some small, hidden part of me wasn't entirely sure it wanted to run. Styling. I told myself I wouldn't show up. I told myself I'd tear up the contract, block the clinic number, and pretend the whole thing never happened. But Friday morning came, and there I was, standing outside the styling room with my heart thudding like I'd walked into a courtroom instead of a clinic. A soft knock and the door opened. Inside, racks of clothing stretched along the walls, pastels, creams, airy fabrics that looked like they'd melt in your hands. Nothing masculine, nothing familiar. Just delicate silhouettes that whispered a version of beauty I'd never imagined being associated with. A woman with short silver hair and bright eyes smiled warmly. You must be our muse. I'm not. I'm just here because. She waved a hand. Don't worry. Everyone's nervous the first time. I wasn't nervous. I was terrified. She guided me to a tall chair in front of studio lights. My reflection stared back, smooth-faced, soft-browed, almost pretty. Even without makeup. Even without trying. We'll start light, she said, brushing something warm across my skin. Just enhancing what Dr. Rowan has so beautifully revealed. I wanted to tell her not to. I wanted to pull away. But instead I sat still as her fingers moved over my face, lip tint, a bit of brow shaping, faint contouring that made my cheekbones catch the light. 10 minutes later, I barely recognized myself again. Only this time, the change wasn't accidental. It was intentional, directed, designed. She chose a top, soft lavender, silky, falling gently along my shoulders. When I slipped it on, it didn't feel wrong exactly. Just unreal. Like I'd stepped into someone else's life by mistake. Beautiful, she murmured. The ethereal look suits you. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words didn't come, because part of me saw what she saw. The final touch was a thin chain necklace, barely noticeable except for the way it caught the light against my smooth collarbone. Looking in the mirror, my chest tightened. I still saw me, but softened. Shifted. Like a version of myself I didn't know existed. This is just the first phase, she said. Dr. Rowan's vision is unfolding. I swallowed hard. And I don't get a say? She paused, meeting my eyes through the mirror. Maybe not about the contract, but you always get a say about who you become in the process. I didn't know what that meant, but as I left the room, lavender fabric brushing lightly against my skin, a strange electricity hummed beneath my fear, a quiet, confused curiosity I didn't. The wig. I kept telling myself the first styling session was a one-time thing. A quick photo shoot prep. Nothing more. But when I walked into the studio the following week, the setup was completely different. A stand of wigs lined the back wall, shoulder-length cuts, soft waves, natural browns, and honey blondes. Beneath them, boxes labeled movement training, pose coaching, essence development. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just skincare promotion. This was character construction. The stylist smiled like we were old friends. Ready for the next step? I'm not sure I should even be here, I said quietly. You're here, she said gently, because the camera is going to love you. You're becoming what the brand needs. Becoming. Another word that shouldn't have hit as deeply as it did. She lifted a wig from its stand, a soft chestnut shade with loose, natural waves. This one is perfect. Not too bold, not too timid. A gentle frame for your face. Before I could protest, she positioned it over my head, tightened the straps, and smoothed the hair around my shoulders. When I looked in the mirror, I sucked in a breath. It didn't feel like dressing up. It didn't feel like play. It felt like seeing a version of myself the world had been waiting to sculpt. My jaw softened even more behind the curtain of hair. My eyes looked larger, almost warm. Ariel. The stylist's voice floated in behind me. Beautiful. Now, let's teach you how to move. She placed her hands lightly on my shoulders, rolling them back, loosening the tension I didn't realize I was holding. Soft steps. Imagine you're made of breath, not weight. I laughed nervously. That's not really me. It doesn't have to be. It's just the look we need for the campaign. But as I followed her guidance, shorter steps, gentle turns, wrists relaxed, something unsettling happened. It didn't feel completely foreign. It felt strangely natural. Then the brand manager entered, tablet in hand. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. Oh yes. That's it. That's our Ariel. I blinked. Ariel. She nodded. Your campaign name. It fits the aesthetic. Soft, ethereal, unbound by gender. Our clients will eat it up. I already have a name, I whispered. Yes, she said. But Ariel is who the world will see. The room went quiet for a moment. The wig brushed my jawline. My reflection stared back with an expression I couldn't decode, fear twisted with something far more fragile. A name I didn't choose. A look I never imagined. A transformation I wasn't sure I wanted, yet couldn't look away from. When I left the studio, the waves of the wig still ghosted through my thoughts. Ariel. I hated how easily it lingered. The heels. I thought the wig was the peak of discomfort. I thought movement training was the part that would break me. But I was wrong. It was the shoes. When I walked into the studio that afternoon, a single pair of nude heels sat on a pedestal like they were waiting for me. Not tall, 2 inches at most, but elegant, with a delicate strap that made my throat tighten. The stylist spotted me staring. Don't worry, she said softly. These aren't about femininity. They're about posture. The camera loves a lifted posture. I don't wear heels, I said. My voice sounded smaller than I meant it to. You don't yet. She handed them to me gently, like they were something precious. My hands trembled as I held them, Smooth, light, unreal. I sat down, slid one foot in, then the other. The moment I stood, everything shifted. My weight tilted forward slightly. My back straightened without me trying. My hips aligned softly. The posture wasn't exaggerated. It was subtle, almost elegant. I hated how good it looked. The stylist walked around me, adjusting the wig, smoothing the lavender top from last session. Perfect. See how your frame changes? The heels lengthen your legs and soften your stance. I swallowed. I feel ridiculous. You look ethereal. I didn't know how to answer that. The photo shoot. They brought out the camera next. The photographer asked me to turn my chin, soften my gaze, lift my shoulder. Little adjustments that felt strange, until suddenly they didn't. The camera clicked again, and again. And each time, the room got quieter, like everyone was trying not to break whatever spell was forming. Then Dr. Rowan stepped in. She studied me with that same unnervingly calm fascination I remembered from our first meeting. "Yes," she whispered. "This is the transformation I saw in you from day one." I felt heat rise in my chest. I never asked for this. She stepped closer, her voice almost gentle.
"No, but you stepped into it."
"Look at yourself. You carry this softness naturally." "I don't want to be soft," I said, though even I heard the doubt in my tone. She tilted her head. "Then why do you look relieved every time you see the person in the mirror?" My breath caught. I didn't have an answer, because she wasn't entirely wrong. When the session ended, I stood in front of the mirror one last time. Lavender fabric, chestnut waves, bare skin, heels that made my posture unfamiliar, but undeniably graceful. The face looking back wasn't a stranger anymore. It wasn't fully me either. It was something in between. Something I didn't know how to fight, and maybe didn't want to. The main shoot. I told myself the photo shoot would just be another uncomfortable hour. Some poses, some instructions. Then I'd go home and pretend none of this was happening. But the moment I stepped into the main studio, something inside me tightened. White backdrop. Softbox lights glowing like miniature suns. A makeup station filled with brushes, palettes, glosses I didn't recognize. And in the center of the room, a marked spot where I was supposed to stand. Where Ariel was supposed to exist. The stylist adjusted the waves of the wig, dusted my cheeks with something that made my skin glow even more, then handed me a pale pink blouse that draped over my shoulders like something fragile. I slipped it on without arguing. I didn't know when I stopped resisting. The photographer looked me over, nodded once, and said, "Beautiful. Let's begin." He guided me through small poses, chin down, shoulder angled, fingers soft at my side. Every adjustment made me look less like the man I used to be and more like the androgynous muse Dr. Rowan had been sculpting. The first click of the camera sent a jolt through me. Then another. And another. At first I felt stiff, exposed. Like every insecurity from my past was standing behind the lens, laughing at me. But something shifted as the session went on. The photographer kept saying, "Perfect," and "Hold that," and "Yes, right there." It was unsettling how easily I followed. Between shots, I caught my reflection in the side mirror. The soft blouse. The chestnut waves. The delicate posture shaped by the heels. The glowing skin I'd once begged for. And the eyes, my eyes, looking back at me with something I couldn't name. Confusion.
Fear. Curiosity.
All tangled together. Revelation. Halfway through, Dr. Rowan entered the room. She didn't interrupt. She just watched, silent and evaluating. When the photographer paused to change lenses, she approached me. "You see it now, don't you?" she whispered. I swallowed. "See what?" "The person you could be. The one your face has been hiding. The one you've never allowed yourself to imagine." "I didn't want this," I said, but the words sounded thin, unconvincing even to me. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You didn't come to me just for treatment. You came to be transformed. You came to let something emerge." My breath trembled as the camera clicked again behind her. "Look at how naturally you fall into softness," she murmured. "This isn't fabrication. It's revelation." For a moment, everything in me cracked open. The fear, the shame, the relief of not fighting, the ache of unspoken identity. The last shots of the day were the quietest. No one spoke. No one needed to. The lights reflected in my eyes, and for the first time, I didn't look away. When it ended, the photographer showed me a preview on a screen. I felt my heartbeat stutter. It wasn't a stranger.
It wasn't me.
It was something in between. And it was beautiful in a way I wasn't ready to admit. But the truth hit me harder than any fear. I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. The billboard. I thought the photo shoot would take weeks to edit. I thought I'd have time to prepare, to figure out how to hide everything that was happening to me. But life didn't wait. 3 weeks later, I was driving downtown when my phone buzzed with a message from a coworker I barely spoke to. "Dude, is this you?" Before I could respond, I looked up and nearly slammed on the brakes. There, stretched across the side of a glass building, was a 30-foot-tall version of me. Or rather, the person I had become in that studio. Smooth, glowing skin. Chestnut waves brushing soft shoulders. A pale blouse catching sunlight like it belonged to some angelic figure. And an expression, my expression, that was gentle, open, undeniably feminine in a way I could no longer explain away. Above my face were the words, glass skin. Beauty without boundaries. I sat frozen in my car as traffic moved around me, my chest rising and falling too fast. My phone kept buzzing.
Friends.
People from high school. A cousin. Even an ex who once told me I wasn't soft enough. They all recognized me and somehow didn't. Some messages were curious. Some joking. Some confused. But one hit deeper than the rest. "You look happier." I didn't know how to answer that. Who am I now? That night, I stood in my bathroom, the same place where this whole spiral had started, staring at my reflection. The features were still there. The soft jawline. The shaped brows. The glow that felt too perfect to be real. Even without the wig, even without heels, something inside me had shifted permanently. I whispered, "Who am I now?" No answer came. Just the quiet hum of the fan and the faint memory of Dr. Rowan's voice. This isn't fabrication. It's revelation. I wanted to hate her for everything she pushed me into. I wanted to hate myself for letting it happen. But the truth sat heavy in my chest. Some part of me had leaned into it. Some part of me had breathed easier in that softness. Some part of me had looked at Ariel and not wanted her to disappear. I touched my cheek, smooth, warm, unfamiliar, and felt a tremor of something I wasn't ready to name. Maybe fear. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the beginning of something I denied for years. The billboard would stay up for the whole season. People would keep recognizing me. The campaign team wanted more shoots. And I didn't know whether to run or step forward. The chapter closes on a single thought that kept me awake long into the night. If this isn't who I was, then why does it feel like someone I was always supposed to meet?